Thank you for that kind introduction. Senator Campbell asked me if I had an orange tie on, which I did not, or why I didn't have an orange tie on, but there are no pictures on the scorecard, right? So 2-0, they're ugly, but we got that done. Thanks to all of you for being here today. I think there's no greater statement about your belief in our port and the maritime and logistics community in this state by the fact that I think this is the largest crowd that has been at the State of the Port in the modern era of the port. So I'm very grateful for you being here today. I'm equally grateful for the leadership of our board. Pat gave a very generous introduction, but clearly Pat McKinney, Pam Lackey, Mike Sisk, Coach Jeffries, Bill Stern, our Chairman Emeritus, Kurt Grindstaff, Rick Stanley, Whit Smith, Dave Posek, all important members of our board and really support us in a very significant way. And I think you'll see this in the course of the speech today. So it's a great opportunity for me to tell you about the opportunities in our port, and I look forward to that. But prior to doing that, and I think just to show you, we coined the phrase called keeping freight moving, and what we say about our port is that we want to make freight move fluidly, and we don't want people really talking a whole lot about our port. The best port is the port which no one talks about, that people can just take for granted that it works very well. And the port here is not just about the 500 people that work for the port. It's about the greater maritime community, the truckers, the ILA, the tugs, the pilots, the linemen. I mean, probably a total of about 10,000 people. So it's an important community, and I'm very grateful to all of them for their leadership. Prior to getting started, I want to talk about something that's really important to all of us. Earlier this year, Carl Ford of ILA Local 1422 was working on a lashing gang early in the morning, unlashing containers, a very important job. The work can't start until that happens. And he died suddenly of a heart attack. And he was alone. No one was there really in time to save him. So this very much saddened all of us, and we realized that we needed to commit ourselves to heart health and really making awareness about heart disease. So with his brother Nate Ford, who could not be here today because he's on military reserve duty, Nate and Carl's family committed to lead us in a heart walk effort this year in honor of Carl Ford. So there's an image of Carl. You probably cannot see it very well. So we're walking as a maritime community this year in honor of Carl Ford of ILA Local 1422. The chairman of the Heart Walk is Dr. David Cole of the Medical University of South Carolina. He's here with us today. He's a great leader. We're going to raise $1 million in the Low Country for the Heart Walk. Matt Hayden is here of the Heart Association, and he would be happy to sign you up. And we've committed the maritime community to raise $100,000, and I'm proud to tell you that we're well on our way to reaching that goal. We're about at $70,000 today, so we're going to get there. We're going to have a great day on September 24th. So help us walk in honor of Carl Ford of ILA Local 1422. So agenda for today is pretty straightforward. Talk a bit about our 2016 results, but as you've always heard me say, those are in the rearview mirror now. We need to talk about going forward. Talk about U.S. trade a little bit, what's happening in the industry that we serve. Talk about the container shipping industry, some big developments in that industry recently. Talk about harbor deepening. That's very important for us. Talk about, well, I would have talked before about inland port, but I'm going to talk today about inland ports. And that's something where our board has supported us earlier today, which we'll talk about a little bit. Talk overall about investments and priorities. This is a capital-intensive business. It's our biggest challenge is to invest money to be an important top 10 port. And then finally talk about a little bit about challenges, but more importantly about opportunities. And if you know me well, you know I see way, way more opportunities than I see challenges. So we have an exciting time ahead of us. So let's get started. Talking briefly about our results compared to fiscal 2015. We did grow slightly. This was a tough year to grow. World trade and container trade in the U.S. has taken a bit of a pause. It's not growing as fast as it was. We grew about 15% year before. We grew barely by 2,000 containers last year, but we still grew. Operating cash flow about $65 million. almost 2 million TEUs, and growth also in Charleston breakbulk tons. So we did grow. We need to continue to grow. Growth is critical to our investment thesis. It's critical to being a successful port. So these are our results for last fiscal year. I always like to show who are the top 10 U.S. container ports and how did they fare, and this is a bit of a different view. It's calendar year 2014 versus calendar 2015. You'll see that Charleston is the 9th largest U.S. container port. Again, almost 2 million TEUs. And what I think you'll find interesting in this slide is what I've said to you before. The East Coast and the Gulf ports are where the action is today. It's where growth is in this country in the port business. And I further believe that the Southeast is the best place to be in the U.S. port business today because we have a combination of import growth driven by population and export growth given by the robust investment in manufacturing that we have had and that we think will come in the future. So that's a good story for the Southeast, and I think this story will play itself out over time as more cargo comes to the East Coast because of the expansion of the Panama Canal and the many opportunities that are here. We had an economic impact study done for our port by the University of South Carolina last year, and it was pretty telling. And this is a pretty similar study that is done in many ports around the country. But the South Carolina ports system has a $53 billion annual impact in South Carolina if you look in terms of direct and indirect economic impact. So that means basically that anyone that has a direct or indirect job relative to the port. So BMW, Michelin, Volvo cars in the future would be counted in this economic impact. It's 10% of state GDP. It's 1 in 11 jobs in South Carolina. And I think the best news of all, frankly, is that the study showed that port-related jobs pay an average of 40% more than the average South Carolina wage. So I've been in the industry all my life. I always say that port work is good work. And I think this is an example of that as well. So those of us in this industry, this is a great story for us in terms of our impact. It also, to me, creates a huge responsibility for us to be on top of our game every day, to grow this port and to do what we need to do for our shareholders who are really the citizens of South Carolina. We're a state-owned operating port. Our shareholders are all of you. It's all the 4.5 or 5 million people that are in the state of South Carolina as residents. So we have a huge impact. Talk a bit about our accomplishments briefly. We had volume and earnings growth, as I said. We did record capital investment in fiscal 15, and fiscal 16. We have a record capital budget for fiscal 17 of $248 million. That is an outsized investment budget. It is what is required to be a top 10 container port in the United States today. We're doing a refurbishment at the Wando Wharf. That's important for the future to handle big ships. We implemented an advanced gate system at the Wando terminal. We admittedly caused some pain for the trucking community in doing that. Anytime you implement a new system, there are often glitches. I think we're on top of that now. We're doing up to 600 gate transactions an hour, and we could not have handled our growth of volume with our old system. So we're on track with that. We secured an important economic development project, Volvo Cars. So Volvo will be our second OEM manufacturer in this state, locating close to the port, will be a significant user of the port and the businesses that support the port. We had record volumes at the South Carolina Inland Port in Greer, over 100,000 rail lifts in 3 years' time. I thought it would take 5 years or more to achieve that. We're there in 3 years. So that is a great development. Related to that, an expansion of our retail distribution presence, the Dollar Tree Distribution Center in Cowpen, South Carolina, 1.5 million square foot facility, actually 2 miles to walk around the perimeter of that facility. So that's how big that building is. Important economic development project for that region. We've grown in refrigerated cargo facilities. We've optimized our rapid rail program. Many of you may not realize that we move over 250,000 containers a year between our terminals and the rail ramps. We have about 150 trucks a day running between terminals and rail ramps 6 days a week to accomplish that. We're working on the Fill 2 project at the Leatherman Terminal. That will complete the filling of the land on which the Leatherman Container Terminal will be built. And we in the port are embarking on cultural change. So we're trying to change our culture. I'll talk a bit about that. I'm a big believer in the fact that no organization succeeds without a positive culture. And if you don't have a culture, you should get one, basically. So we're going to change our culture in the port. We'll talk a bit about that. So we've accomplished a lot in 2016. I'm very proud of it. We're very active in the port, and we still have a lot to do. So if you talk about trade in general, I think most of the experts, and certainly Casey Conway of SunTrust will talk to us tomorrow about his economic outlook, but I think most people think trade growth will be slower. That's not a crisis, really. I mean, trade growth was really fast because of the offshoring of manufacturing. It probably couldn't continue at over 10% a year. That would have been an unrealistic expectation. So the trade is growing slower, probably 3 or 4%. But there are pockets of strength, and we are fortunate to be in those pockets of strength. One is automotive. We as a country are buying 18 million cars this year. To give you some perspective, we did 9 million in the depth of the recession in 2009. It's a growth industry, and we're very much centered on that industry. Probably 10% of our freight is automotive-related freight, container-wise. We're very centered on emerging markets. Emerging markets are code really for China and India. China took a bit of a pause as they changed from a manufacturing exporting economy to a domestic consumption economy, but don't believe that they won't be buying a lot of American goods, and a lot of American goods are preferred by the Chinese. And the new distribution center is not a bricks and mortar distribution center, it's an e-commerce based distribution center. So we're very much in the middle of that, also participating as a state in many of the economic projects which are really foreign direct investment coming from places like China and Europe in manufacturing facilities in the United States. And I continue to believe, people say, how much are you going to grow? Well, obviously, I'm not an economist. The best is a one-hand economist because they can't keep saying on the other hand, right? So they don't always know, sorry, Casey. I just say that we're going to grow twice. The Southeast ports will grow twice as fast as the overall U.S. port market because of the good fundamentals that we have in this region that I talked about, and because our ports are great ports here. Our ports work very, very well. And for a shipping line, that's critical to be able to get in and out of a harbor. So my former industry, I always tell people I'm a reforming liner shipping executive because you never completely reform. I hope I lost most of my bad habits coming over here, but probably retained a few. But container shipping is a troubled industry today, and we've seen that. So it's estimated, and that's the industry we serve as a port, so it's important for us to understand that. So it's estimated that the industry will lose $10 billion this year in 2016. So if you think about it, this is an industry that is an essential service. It's the fulcrum of globalization. There would be no globalization without container shipping, without the work that we do. So it is an essential industry, yet the players in the industry will lose $10 billion this year. That's really unacceptable. You'll hear Lars Jensen talk a bit about that tomorrow morning at our trade conference. We had a bankruptcy almost unheard of in the industry. I mean, the last major bankruptcy was probably Likes Brothers and U.S. Lines before. The 7th largest line in the world went bankrupt, Hanjin Lines, very painful. No one foresaw that. Unfortunate for all those involved. In my belief, it will be the starting point of actually turning the industry on a better and sounder fundamental basis where the lines will eventually make money again and be able to reinvest, which they need to do. We work in a world of mega alliances today. There are 3 major mega alliances of vessel sharing that serve our port. Why do they share ships? Because they really need to deploy big ships. So mega alliances are about deploying big container ships. It's the way that can be done most efficiently. And I think it's good for a port like ours because we prefer big ships. We like the efficiency that big ships bring. I know the Port of Savannah feels the same way about that. If you invest in the right equipment, if you've done your job investment-wise, you can handle big container ships. A lot of people talk about a supply and demand imbalance. There is some of that. I think that there is also a retail imbalance. There are too many lines chasing a finite amount of freight, and I think it's going to lead to a consolidation in the industry. And I think the industry within 2 years will end up with maximum 10 carriers. And I think that is a very good industry structure. I think that's an industry structure globally, which will support profitable operations and will be good for all of us, both the carriers, the shippers and customers, and those of us that rely on these ocean carriers for a living. The one question that we all have to have is, what is the buying power situation? What will this lead to buying power-wise? So we have to be very vigilant about that, make sure that we provide a good service so we can justify the type earnings that we need. So this is a big ship industry. That is the trend. If you've heard me for 7 years, I've said that since I came here, and it's manifested itself in a more significant way than even I ever thought. In my ocean carrier time as late as 97 or 98, I would have told you we never build bigger than a 5,000 TEU ship. This in this picture is a 14,000 TEU ship. We're preparing to handle that ship here as early as the end of this year, certainly by 2017. And this is the future. 16 of our 25 vessel calls weekly today are 8,000 TEU ships and above. So this is what we've been preparing for. It's what we're investing in. We are ready for it. It's not just about harbor depth. It's about harbor width. It's about the ability to get these ships in and out quickly. And it's really the catalyst for port investment. It's why we are strengthening a wharf. It's why we're doing a lot of the investment that we're doing today. So massive ships, 1,200 feet long, 170 feet wide, and very important for the future. So again, 5,000 TEU ship that I thought would be the biggest in the end of the 90s. The biggest ship in the harbor today that has been the APL Yangshan. It's almost 11,000 TEU ship. It's the ship you see on the right, and we're preparing for a 14,000 TEU ship in the not too distant future. So, and just to show you a picture of how this works in our harbor, here's the APL Yangshan going out of the harbor. It doesn't go quite that fast. This is sped up a little bit. I wish sometimes they could go that fast, but this ship is going out of the harbor, sailing from the Wando terminal, and you'll see a CMA CGM ship passing it in the middle of the harbor and coming back into the Wando terminal. So this is something that really you'll see, and both of these are, the CMA ship's a 9,000 TEU ship. The APL Yangshan was almost 11,000 TEU ship. So this is the challenging work of the pilots and the tugs to handle these ships efficiently and make sure that ships get in and out. So I thought you would enjoy seeing that, and this really plays itself out every day in our harbor, so it's something that we're very proud of. So, to serve ships like that, what do we have to do? We buy new cranes. So this is a picture that actually I took from the wharf. The old crane on the right has a lift height of 115 feet from dock to the maximum apex of what it can lift. The new crane on the left has a lift height of 155 feet. We have 2 of these cranes now. We will have a total of 8 of 155 feet at the Wando terminal by the end of next year, designed to handle 2 14,000 TEU ships simultaneously at our piers. So it's just one of the areas, and all these cranes come from China. You see what they look like on the left broken down, and you see what it looks like set up. So it is an absolutely huge crane, and that is our future. Let's talk about harbor deepening. Our colleagues from the Army Corps of Engineers are here today, Lieutenant Colonel Matt Lozado and Lisa Matheny, and they are our partners in harbor deepening. And this was the first harbor that was done under something called SMART planning, had a feasibility study under SMART planning. I don't know what the planning was called before. Probably it's not important, but anyway, it's SMART planning now. That's all we need to know. The good news is our harbor deepening study is complete. It was done in a record time of 4 years. It's a $500 million project. We will achieve a harbor by 2020, which is 52 feet at mean low water. It will be the deepest harbor on the east coast of the United States. It's not an accident that we're asking for 52 feet. The state of South Carolina is buying an extra 2 feet. The reason is very simple. A fully loaded ship is 48 feet of draft. We need 4 feet of under keel clearance. So 52 feet allows us to have 24/7 access. And we need, as I call it, the 2 A's. And that sounds kind of strange, but it's authorization and it's appropriation. And we need both of those. So authorization means the federal government says they accept it, and appropriation means we get money, because the federal share of this is about $170 million. And I'm very proud of this. This is from C-SPAN just last week. Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma is the chairman of the Senate EPW committee that runs harbor deepening subjects and port infrastructure. And when he took the floor of the Senate, he actually put up a chart of the Port of Charleston. This is not superimposed. This was put up as the poster child really for an efficiently done harbor deepening project and the way these projects should be done in the future. So we're very grateful to him for his leadership. And we're also very grateful to Congressman Mark Sanford, who is here today. And Congressman, if you would, I know John recognized you, I ask you to stand up. Congressman Sanford is our congressman in the 1st District, and he has been very active in terms of talking to Chairman Schuster of the House Transportation and Infrastructure, and has been a real advocate for our port, as has our entire congressional delegation. Our congressional delegation may not agree on a lot of things, but the one thing they all agree on is the deepening of our harbor, basically. So thank you, Congressman Sanford, for that. So again, if this had been 3 weeks ago, I'd be talking about inland port, but today I'm going to talk about inland ports. So inland ports are strategic assets for a port. It's a way of extending our logistics infrastructure, leveraging short-haul rail. I told you we took a flyer on an inland port with Norfolk Southern and Greer 3 years ago. It's been a huge success. 100,000 lifts, an economic development catalyst. I'm here today to tell you that our board approved, just before this State of the Port, our second inland port in Dillon, South Carolina. In Dillon, South Carolina on the CSX-A line. So we will begin building an inland port in Dillon, and it should be in operation by the fall of 2017. So this is a momentous moment for the port. In a very important area economically to develop for the state of South Carolina, because these ports are magnets for industrial development. And what you will see is that we, not by accident, have one rail spine up I-26 to Greer, and we'll now in the future have one rail spine up I-95 to Dillon, just on the North Carolina border. So this gives us really great coverage on the two main high-speed intermodal lines in the state of South Carolina. We could not do this without the cooperation of a lot of people. These projects take a lot of collaboration. I'm very grateful to William Fleming. He's here today, the Marlboro Economic Development Cooperative. William, stand up, please. These guys move heaven and earth to help us. And I'm very grateful to the leadership in Dillon County for being willing to get involved in providing some land for this facility. So it's an exciting day for the port. It's an exciting day for the state of South Carolina. So we have 3 major priorities going forward. One is terminal optimization, making our terminals work as efficiently as they can, getting them as densely utilized as they can. One, investment, and one, cargo base expansion. And I guess I'd say, and there was a slide that's missing in here, but also is getting, obviously, WRDA 2016 done. So we are in the middle of getting the Water Resources Development Act of 2016 passed. Hopefully there should be a Senate vote tomorrow on that. Hopefully that's going to be positive. There's nothing really controversial in that bill related to ports. All the projects are extensively vetted. So that should happen. And then the House, again with Congressman Sanford and his colleagues' leadership, the House will hopefully take that up quickly, reconcile the bills, and we get a positive vote by the end of September. So at that point we can move forward, with the next phase of our project. So these are our 3 major priorities plus WRDA 2016. So terminal optimization, what does it mean? So it means getting better utilization per acre. It means recognizing that port real estate is scarce real estate. It needs to be utilized as efficiently as possible. It's stacking higher, stacking closer, still doing it very safely. We'll have 8 tall cranes, be able to work 2 14,000 TEU ships simultaneously. We look already now at buying a next generation of terminal operating system. The days of having a homegrown operating system will be over for us one day. We'll need to buy an common industry system. hopefully a new chassis paradigm. And that, when I say that interests a lot of people. What am I talking about when I say that? And certainly what I'm not doing, I'm not criticizing the South Atlantic Co-op chassis pool, because the CCM, the South Atlantic Co-op chassis pool, this is the poster child for a good chassis pool. It's been very well managed. But what I am concerned about is the age of the grade pool chassis fleet. We're dealing with 20-year-old chassis today. I'm concerned about who's going to invest in new chassis to renew that asset. I'm concerned about the ownership structure of the companies that provide that. A lot of them are owned by private equity today. I'm not sure that's a sustainable model for this type of long-term investment. And I'm also concerned, in my time in the industry, we've sort of gotten away from what we had planned, because we really planned one chassis pool for the entire industry, like the TTX railcar fleet. And what we have today is a gray chassis pool, sort of is the focal point of the chassis fleet, but around that we have a lot of shipper-specific pools that are serving individual clients, and those all happen to be new chassis. And the reason you have shipper-specific pools is the shippers don't like the condition of the gray chassis fleet. So we're sort of in a conundrum there, and we need to have some effort to improve the chassis condition to get back to one chassis pool to operate the most efficiently. And finally, in terms of terminal optimization, closer collaboration with our stevedores, working together to make sure that our terminals are designed in the best way that we can get the maximum of productivity. So a lot to be done in that area. Investment is critical. And you see this chart, you've seen it many times if you heard me speak before, but this is an absolutely daunting investment requirement that we have as a port for the future. So in the next 10 years, the South Carolina Ports Authority, and most of you realize that we have our own balance sheet, we borrow on our own credit basically, we will invest $1.3 billion in the next 10 years. And a lot of that's front-loaded. It's really in the next 5 years to take advantage of the many opportunities that we have. We're fortunate to be a state port, a state operating port. We're fortunate to have the state of South Carolina as our partner. There are many legislators here today, and I will not name them all. The Review and Oversight Commission of the legislature is led by Senator Grooms. He's here today. Vice Chairman Merrill, who I know is not here today. Chairman Leatherman. I know David Mack is here. I know Sean Bennett is here. I mean, a lot of people contribute in the legislature to the strategic interests of the port. So the state of South Carolina is investing close to $900 million alongside us in the next 10 years to keep our port as a world-class port. So this is a huge investment burden and something that we need to do. This is a picture of the UK Leatherman Senior Terminal. It's our new container terminal at the former Navy base. You remember earlier I said we're just completing Phil 2 of the project, which is right behind the wall. We're reclaiming 65 acres from the harbor, and it is a major strategic growth of our port. It will add 50% to our capacity. We'll be ready about the time of our harbor deepening at beginning of 2020, basically. So important strategic initiative. To do these types of investments, we need to further improve our return on capital. We have done a lot to improve our operating earnings. We need to make further improvements in that. That's a function of volume and price. You have to have both. We need to leverage big ship efficiency. We need to make sure we have a strong value proposition so clients realize that it's important to call here. It's important to pay a fair price to us to provide the service that we provide. And we're actually hopeful that improved carrier fundamentals financially will translate into their willingness to pay a fair price here in our port. So that is a critical part of what we're doing. The third thing is cargo base expansion. And we'll have a little fun with this one, hopefully, but most of you baby boomers will, and if you're not a baby boomer, I'm sorry, but in 1967, there was a movie called The Graduate. And in that movie in 1967, Dustin Hoffman even learned about cargo base expansion. And I'll show you, in addition to making Simon and Garfunkel rich people, that was a very important part of this movie. And,
I just want to say one word to you. Just one word. Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, I am.
Plastics.
Exactly how do you mean?
There's a great future in plastics. Think about it. Will you think about it?
Yes, I will.
Enough said. That's a deal.
So Dustin Hoffman learned about plastics in 1967. And believe it today, and you'd say, well, there are not not a lot of plastics manufactured in South Carolina, and that's very true. But there's a boom in plastics manufacturing in the U.S. Gulf. It's estimated that about 200,000 incremental 40-foot containers of plastics will be shipped by the end of this decade. And we think there's a fair chance that a lot of those will move over southeastern ports, particularly Charleston, if we have the proper facilities here. So there are many plastics exporters here today. There are many companies that want to serve those. Big manufacturing is key for our port. There's no substitute for the success of a port than big manufacturing. Today, 5 major manufacturers account for over 10% of our volume. And Volvo Cars will add significantly to that with over 20,000 containers. So it's important that we as a state succeed in attracting and continue to attract big manufacturing. We've done a very good job at that. We need to continue. We've worked very hard on the cold chain, on expanding cold storage facilities. When I started here in 2009, we had 50,000 square feet of cold storage facilities. Today we have 600,000 square feet. 3 major companies, Lineage, New Orleans Cold Storage, and Agro, are here in the port, and our refrigerated container volume is really exploding as a result. So this is an example of how having facilities attracts cargo, it attracts shipping lines and the like. So growing our cargo base is critical. What is required to do that? We have to have private sector investment in transloading facilities. We need near dock transloading capability. It is a significant opportunity for the private sector. I don't think there's a lot of risk in it given the fundamentals of exporting in this region. We need to focus on emerging market commodities. What are those? Forest products, ag products, plastics, chemicals, and the like. We think that we are the logical port for the Carolinas. Many parts of North Carolina are cheaper served over Charleston. We want to leverage that fact. The inland port in Dillon is partly related to doing that. We need to be a strong economic development partner for the state. We need to reach out to the Midwest, develop some rail capability to that region. And finally, we need to leverage inland ports. And I think with the addition of Dillon, we'll be on a good path to doing that. And one day, we will build a new terminal with our partners at the Georgia Ports Authority in Jasper County. And this is the picture of the Jasper Ocean Terminal. And it doesn't really look so significant in this picture, but if you realize that when built, it's 1,500 acres, it will be the biggest contiguous container terminal in the United States. It's at the mouth of the Savannah River. It's an important project. We are big competitors with the GPA today, but we're going to have to learn to work together to develop a project like this. And if you want to have a terminal like this ready in 2030, you have to start permitting it now. So we're starting that process now. Very exciting project, very massive investment, $5 billion investment that's not anywhere in our capital plan today, but we'll have to have it there. So I mentioned culture change. So when I joined the port, I said it was important that although we are a state agency, that we function to the maximum extent we can like a business. So we're very business-minded. So we are essentially working on a 2-year culture change initiative. We've got a facilitator named Brad Humphrey that's working with us on that because it's hard to do that internally. Our vision is very simple. We aspire to be the preferred container port in the United States among the top 10. We want our customers to look around and say, this is the port that we prefer to call if we have a choice. And we've defined our staff, not the top management, but our staff defined 6 values that we will stand for together in support of that vision. So adaptability, being business-minded, being customer-focused, being decisive, being enthusiastic, and having faith and trust in each other. So we intend to redefine our culture in the port. I think that's important. You can't succeed without a great culture. And I would challenge you and your businesses, be it big or small, to think about that. How do you do that in your port? You'll see a great speaker. If you're coming to the trade conference tomorrow, Captain David Marquet. turned the worst performing submarine in the Navy around into the best performing submarine in the Navy with the same people by simply empowering more people to be leaders, less people to be followers. So how you do that in an organization is critical, and we're about doing that in the port today. Culture is it's the blood flow, it's the heart of the organization. And again, you have to have a good culture. So I'm going to end with not so much challenges, but opportunities. And I stand here today, and my major belief is that we've accomplished a lot together. And again, I emphasize it's not just the port, it's the extended maritime community that accomplishes these things together. We've done a lot in the last 5 or 6 years. I'm very proud of that. And we have a tremendous amount of opportunity going forward. If you don't take anything away from here other than that, realize that the opportunity is great. It takes all the stakeholders to make that happen. So I had a boss, one of my favorite bosses in my life said to me, Jim, he said, the victories go to the bold. The victories go to the bold. So you got to take some risk. We got to. I know. For Senator Campbell will like this. I know Dabo Swinney says, "Bring your own guts." I'm not particularly a Clemson fan. I don't dislike them, but bring your own guts. That's a good thing. That basically says it's about the people. So we talk about investing in assets all the time, cranes and wharfs and terminals. But in the end of the day, what makes us successful, what will make us get over the top as a port is the people of this port that work in the port. The people in the Port Authority, the people in the ILA, the people in the tugs, the linemen, the maintenance and repair companies, the shipping companies. That's what makes us successful. So we've got to focus on that. The good news for us is that global businesses locate near global ports. So we're in a good spot. Businesses want to be near us. They don't want to be away from us if they're doing business globally. And most manufacturing platforms are global today. The Charleston brand is very, very strong. We have a tremendous visibility in the world today. People know that we're competing very hard. They know that we create and we provide a good product. We can't be satisfied with that. We have to provide a better product. And we have to invest more. We have to work better together. But one thing that I will assure you is the port is going to be a very strong business partner for you. You're our customers. The truckers are our customers. And if we can do whatever we can do to help this port work better, we are committed to do that. And you have our 100% commitment about that. So I want to thank you for being here today. As I've said to you before, I'll say it again. I think our best years are ahead of us in this port. It's all about the people in the port, and when I look around and see all of you here, I know we're going to be successful. So we got to keep freight moving. Thank you for being here. This week is South Carolina Ports Week in South Carolina, is declared by our governor. I'm very honored by that. So this is a week that focuses on our ports, and I think that's really important. So have a great week. Thank you for coming, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.